There was a story, Robert Fulgham, he was a student learning about Greek culture, and he writes in a book about his professor. And because they've been talking about kind of some of the philosophical aspects of Greek culture, Robert decided to ask the question that was on his mind, and he looked him in the face, his professor, and he just says, "What do you think the meaning of life is?" And everybody kind of laughed, the students, because it was the end of the 2 weeks and everything was kind of lighthearted, and then suddenly this big question comes in. But his professor looks at him and decides to answer the question. And he goes into his bag and he pulls out a little round mirror. And he explains this mirror comes from his growing up, that he was in Greece and he was from a very poor family and they lived in the countryside. And during the war, he went out and he discovered a German motorbike had kind of crashed and it was a complete mess. But the mirror had broken, and so as a little boy, he gathered up the pieces of the mirror and he tries to put them together to repair the mirror so he could have a mirror, because he didn't have anything to play with. And he found that he couldn't, so in the end, he just took the biggest piece. And it was quite a sharp triangle piece, and gradually he smoothed it with stones till it became really beautiful and really round. And he had nothing to do in the countryside, in the rural Welsh Greek village, and so he started playing with this mirror, and he tended to play with the sun. And maybe you've done this at school, where you shine the light and you try to get it into the teacher's eye. Well, he would try and reflect the sun, but in the kind of rural countryside where he lived, he tried to reflect the sun into some of the dark places, and it became a game almost, that the bits where the sun can't reach, that he would try and reflect the sun so it could shine into the darkest bits where the sun wasn't. And he knew he wasn't the light, but he was reflecting the light and he was controlling the light. And as the professor explained about this mirror and what he did as a boy, he said, "I've kept this mirror. And as I went into my teenage years, and I went into my 20s, and I thought a bit more about life," he said, "this mirror became really a metaphor for me, for what life was all about, that actually we're not the source of life, but we do have the ability to reflect light. We can reflect light into the darkest places, into the darkest lives, and into the darkest situations. And that gives us humility to realize actually we have nothing in ourselves to offer, but actually gives us confidence and possibilities that we can be people that reflect the light." And what Jesus is saying in this passage is, I'm going to be with the Father, and I'm going to leave you to carry on my mission of bringing light and hope to the world. And you're not going to carry your own light. You're going to reflect my light. And not to live for yourself, but to live for God's glory. And one of the tools I'm going to give you for that is prayer. That as you pray, not for your own needs, not just to make life easy, but you pray for God's purposes to come. You pray for God's light to come. You pray for God's honor to come in situations, in your communities. Then actually you can be someone who can change the world. You can be someone who can be that reflection. If you reach that level of depth and maturity where you're not at the center of your life, but God's honor and God's purposes. And through prayer, God invites us to have that influence on the world that we live in. And to me, I just find that's an incredible opportunity. It's an incredible responsibility. And it's an incredible invitation.